One thing we notice with a lot of people is they have a really hard time achieving full depth in the back squat. I was one of those people. And for years and years, I tried to solve it in a variety of different ways without much success. And now I've come up with this, what I think is a pretty unique way of solving the problem that's really worked well for me. One of the things I think we're trying to break, one of the ideas or the kind of standard practices that I had to break, was this idea of a tripod foot, of keeping your whole foot on the ground at the sacrifice of everything else. And I found when I did that, or when I watch other people do that, they tend to kind of tip forward, the bar ends up not in a great position, the weight is forward, and they can't really sit all the way to depth, which makes sense, right? The weight's not in the right place, you're not gonna be able to sit all the way down. So I've kind of reverse engineered it where I'm trying to keep the weights in the right place, not worry about my foot so much, particularly in the earlier warm-up sets. And that has really helped me establish a good position that when I get to my working sets, my foot is on the ground, but now my torso is in the right place that it needs to be to really move the most weight and have the best balance. So that is what I'm gonna show you guys now. So you can see from that when I had my full foot on the ground, I couldn't quite get the full range of motion. I was tipping forward, it just seemed a little uncomfortable. And then when my heels came up off the ground, I was able to sit all the way down with an upright torso. And now what I'm gonna show you is, as I add weight, that heel lift is gonna get less and less as I get to about 60% of my 1 rep max. And then I should be able to, at about 100 kilos, 90 kilos, be able to stay more up and down, full foot on the ground, now that I've established that as my, my ideal position. So this is 80 kilos. You're still looking probably at under 50% of my 1 rep max. So still very much a warm-up weight. And again, I think that's really important because obviously you don't want to be near maximal loads with, you know, only half your foot on the floor. But this is more looked as a way of like warming up, and then I'd say when you hit the threshold of about 60% is when you really want to think about having a little bit more of a standard base of support, and ideally still be able to hit that deep upright position. Let's give this a shot. Maybe about 3 or 4 months ago, I started working with this, and it's just made my back squat reliably deeper and more upright, which I think when you really want to train back squats for, you know, leg development, you know, that deep upright position where you can really use your legs and minimize the use of your lower back is going to be very helpful. You know, a lot of people who back squat, and I was one of these people, whereas if you end up with that kind of forward lean, you put a lot of stress on your lower back. And your back squats, at best, tend to train your lower back. At worst, they tend to bother your lower back. So this was a way of like really keeping the squat in the legs, which is what I want to use it for. It's mostly what we try to use the back squat for here in the gym. So like I said, I was just trying to solve the problem. And I realized that like, well, let me start with the thing I'm trying to solve first, which is this deep position with upright torso, and then let everything else kind of fall into place around it. And that led me to kind of this technique. All right, so here we are, we're at 100 kilos now. Hopefully I should be able to do this with that same position, full foot on the floor. This is starting to get into kind of working weight mode. So I should be able to pretty much keep my whole foot pressed against the ground, okay? And this is what we've been working up to. Upright torso, deep squat, full foot on the ground. All right when we kind of approach the working weights. Every weight that would be heavier than this should look the same way. All right, there you go, kids. So you should see my whole foot was on the floor. I was still able to stay upright, still able to sit deep, still had my knees creak and crack. But that's it. Every weight from here on in, actually keeping the whole foot on the ground, will get easier and easier. So work on that. Warm-up sets. Don't be afraid to stay mid-foot. Your heels come off the ground, no big deal. Just really work on staying upright, eyes forward, chest forward. Sit as deep as you can. As the weights get heavier, the warm-ups progress. Heel gets closer and closer to the ground. You get to your work sets. You're in that same position, full foot on the ground. And now you can deep squat.